Hi everyone, my name is Austin Stowe, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the Colin Kaepernick Nike ad for the Just Do It 30th anniversary. This ad and social media campaign ended up going live in September of 2018, and it was actually right during the first NFL game of the season. To just rewind things a little bit and give you some background, Colin Kaepernick was the former quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, and he actually spurred controversy back in 2016 after kneeling for the national anthem. This is a kneel protest against police brutality and also just against the resulting deaths from police brutality of unarmed African Americans, according to Abad Santos. It's customary to stand during the national anthem during any sporting event before the sporting event starts, and a lot of people saw Kaepernick's protest as something that was disrespectful towards the country and to the men and women who had served in the U.S. military, according to Balcom. Quoted by Colin Kaepernick, he said, "I'm not going to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color," according to Balcom. During 2016 and even after the 2016 season, Kaepernick explained that he was kneeling in protest to the national anthem to end racial injustice and police brutality towards people of color. However, that backlash continued, and it was spurred largely by President Donald Trump, who tried to recast Kaepernick and the predominantly African-American group of players who followed his lead as unpatriotic, according to Streeter. Kaepernick hasn't played in an NFL game since January 1st, 2017, and his career was cut short since no other team wanted to sign him due to the backlash that his protest caused. In October 2017, Kaepernick filed a grievance against the NFL and team owners, alleging they colluded to keep him out of the league following his pregame protests during the national anthem, according to Newman. So then we go back to Nike. Nike is one of the most known brands in the world. They're known to get involved with different social issues and have a voice as a brand, just because they're willing to step up for minorities, people who might be facing backlash from members in society, that sort of thing. So what Nike did, they sort of saw this as an opportunity to get Colin Kaepernick involved with their campaign. Nike in the past has had a long history of using its ads to make social statements, and the Just Do It campaign, which was developed by Wyden and Kennedy, an ad agency, launched in 1988. So Nike has a long history of actually creating controversial campaigns that sort of shows that the brand is making a statement. So just a few examples. So one of them from 1995 for their Just Do It ad campaign featured an openly gay HIV positive runner, Rick Munoz, and AIDS activists actually applauded Nike for this one. There was also another ad that was a little bit more recent that was called "What Will They Say About You" in 2017, and it features 5 Middle Eastern women pushing social norms to succeed in sports like boxing and skateboarding, according to Tyler. And another one that where Nike sort of took a stand includes this one in 1995 where Nike tackled gender issues with its "If You Let Me Play" ad, which showed how organized sports for girls was something positive, and the ad featured young girls quoting statistics about the benefits of how sports can improve their lives. So with all this being said, Nike understood the risk of using Kaepernick as the face of its 30th anniversary Just Do It ad campaign, but an understanding of its situation, audience strategy, and how to execute properly made this campaign a huge success. So let's first get into what the PR situation is. So according to Smith, a PR situation is a set of circumstances facing an organization. Without an early and clear statement of the situation to be addressed, you'll not be able to conduct efficient research or define the goal of your communication program later in the planning process, according to Smith. Nike at the time saw that the socio-political climate was heating up, And according to Kim, corporations are increasingly coming forward to take a public stance on socially and politically controversial issues. So here you had somebody in Colin Kaepernick who began a national controversy regarding kneeling for the national anthem. He was taking a political stand, and this was even against President Trump, who was critically outspoken against him. And Nike really wanted to stand by Kaepernick and what he stood for, and wanted to further this idea. This was the opportunity that they talk about in Smith, and this opportunity is defined as a public relations situation that may be identified as an opening, something to be embraced. An opportunity is what offers a potential advantage for the organization. This is exactly what Nike saw with this chance and sort of doing something special with Colin Kaepernick. So Nike's mission is bringing inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. Colin Kaepernick, through his advocacy, conviction, and talent on and off the field, exemplifies those values in the strongest terms. So another thing that brands need to do before they start any type of social media campaign or any marketing campaign is that they also have to sort of look into themselves and figure out what their values are and if it aligns with what their strategy is for the campaign. So Nike had to look at itself and understand what its values were before developing the campaign. They need to figure out, would this align with our values? According to Smith, before a successful strategic communication plan can be created, strategists must have a thorough and factual understanding of their organization. He also had to look at Nike's commitment to diversity and community, and this was particularly relevant during 2018, which was against the backdrop of today's America, where politics have been amplified, there's cultural divisions, and Nike sort of took this opportunity to lean into its mission and values. Then in terms of its vision, Nike envisions itself as more than an athletic wear company. It sees itself as an organization that can hopefully break down cultural barriers so everyone can participate in sports equally and fairly. With this opportunity, and also just identifying how their values aligned with this campaign that they were trying to achieve, Nike had to take a calculated risk, and it all began with understanding who its audience was. According to Smith, good communication planning calls for the identification of an organization's various audiences. This is also essential for a strong social media campaign. According to Freeberg, the more information we have about our key audiences, the easier it is to craft effective and personalized messages to fit their motivational needs and expectations. According to Kim, etc., Nike's 30th anniversary campaign very carefully calculated the risk and created a campaign targeted to the most appropriate audiences. These audiences were Gen Z, Millennials, and Gen X generations of consumers who wanted companies to actually have a viewpoint and take a stand on important issues in society. I'll get more into that in a little bit. 2/3 of Nike's customers are under 35 years old and more racially diverse than the baby boomer population. Continuing to try to identify its audience, it also means taking a look at who the influencer or that brand voice was in Colin Kaepernick. According to Freeberg, this is someone who is a passionate and skilled professional who knows how to communicate, engage, and create dialogue for all the right reasons. When it comes to influencers like Colin Kaepernick, brands should listen and partner with the influencers who actually love and believe in the products and services they're using, according to Freeberg. Colin Kaepernick already had a marketing deal with Nike and was used in the past as a Nike brand ambassador. However, this is when he was playing football. Also, according to Balcom, Democrats and younger people actually favored Kaepernick more than elderly people and conservatives. Continuing with Nike trying to lock in its target audience, Nike really had to figure out how Kaepernick could relate and align with its different customers that they could see aligning with this, which would be the younger demographic, African Americans, and those who are Democrats. So popular figures or influencers must have a real connection to the issue at hand, according to Dodharigia. The one thing that this Kaepernick ad had was he did have a sense of relatability with the target audience. So Kaepernick is biracial. He was born to a single mother who made an adoption plan, and he was raised from infancy by white parents. So he really has experiences on both sides of the table when it comes to both being African American and Caucasian. As a person of color with a foot in both worlds, he has a believable personal investment in the causes the two ads championed. So this just sort of adds to Nike locking in that target audience, and they really got it nailed down to primarily young African American potential Nike buyers who are also more on the left-leaning liberal side. Corporations are increasingly coming forward to take a public stance on socially and politically controversial issues, according to Kim, etc. And you especially see this with Nike with the past different campaigns that they've had, and getting involved with this one with Colin Kaepernick. It's nothing that they haven't done in the past, getting involved in issues that are really controversial, and this is just taking another step in that direction. So now that that target audience was understood, Nike could really move on to its goals and objectives. In terms of social media, creating a goal statement is developing a broad statement that captures the overall focus of your social media initiative, according to Freeberg. Given the risks involved in stirring up controversy among consumers in a socio-political climate, it seemed like Nike clearly here was considering its purpose to use the power of sport to move the world forward. So this is what its goal was, and I'll just repeat it, is to use the power of sport to move the world forward. The entire campaign was aimed at highlighting athletes that are pushing boundaries in society in some way. In order to achieve this goal of using the power of sport to move the world forward, they had to sort of nail down what the objectives were and how they were going to make that impact that they were going for. Objectives is clearly stating what you're aiming to accomplish, according to Freeberg. In terms of the objectives that the Nike team wanted, for one, they wanted to receive a large number of social media impressions during the day of the campaign's release, which is September 3rd, the first day of the NFL season, and throughout the entire week. There's also the objective of both the ad and social media campaign, helping the organization make some financial gains by increasing sales. Lastly, it was really up to building on the brand that they had already established, which was stepping up to the societal issues and addressing them, and doing it through the power of sports. So it was also accomplishing that too. So once the goals and objectives were figured out, Nike had to move on to what its creative idea would be and also its messaging. So they knew that they were going to face backlash, but instead they decided to embrace this backlash and continue with this idea. And what the idea was an extreme close-up of Kaepernick's face, featuring prominently in the campaign in black and white, with the message, "Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything." Something very simple yet powerful in its messaging, and it almost sort of gives off the idea that things aren't just black and white. There's a lot going on when it comes to the different societal issues, especially with police brutality and also just, I guess, racial tensions in the U.S. overall. So that was some of almost like the foreshadowing behind it. From a branding perspective, the Kaepernick ad was a golden opportunity for Nike to cement its values. So this is where the messaging comes in, and its messaging is basically focusing on principles such as never giving up, rising to the challenge, sacrificing for the greater good, and serving a purpose, according to Dudhar Regia. With this creative idea, Nike wanted to take that big risk, and basically it goes back to their overall just brand messaging, just do it. So they were just going out and just doing what they needed to do and getting a voice out and using Colin Kaepernick as that source. So in terms of the execution, so it ended up happening on September 3rd, and it all began with a tweet from Kaepernick's account on Twitter. And it was the same photo close-up that was mentioned previously of his face with text over it reading, "Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything." It also became a long-form commercial that opened up the football season, according to Beer. Kaepernick shared an image of his face on Twitter, and Nike ended up retweeting this image too. according to Tyler. And it was also the front-running ad during that quarter, so it was placed on large billboards throughout large American cities such as New York City and Chicago. Initially, the public response was actually negative. The campaign started off really rocky with people burning Nike shoes in Twitter videos. There were hashtag Make America Great Again, hashtag Boycott Nike, and hashtag Nike Boycott were all trending shortly after the campaign went live. You had videos of all these people who were primarily conservative, sort of right-wing leaning President Trump supporters, and also just military supporters, sort of burning their shoes and saying they would never buy another Nike product again. However, this was shortly lasted, and this ended up actually becoming one of the most impactful campaigns of the decade. Once this ad ended up playing a couple days later during Thursday Night Football, it actually drove a second spike in tweets, and it increased positive sentiment as the audience digested the powerful ad and its message of excellence, commitment, and sacrifice, classic Nike marketing staples according to Shaw. Initially, there were negative hashtags trending, such as MAGA, boycott Nike, Nike boycott, and you'll see it in this chart too, this sort of transition to positive after the 5th of September. Kaepernick's tweet from September 3rd was liked 900,000 times and retweeted 366,000 times. The video ad on September 5th was viewed 24.9 million times on Twitter and over 15 million times on YouTube as of September 12th, 2018, according to Shaw. You can also see this sort of happen in this chart right here, which shows consumer purchasing decisions. And Shaw actually analyzed what the purchasing considerations or what the voices were of people on Twitter talking about whether or not they wanted a pair of Nikes or they were thinking about buying some Nikes, and what the chatter was there. And that was analyzed, and you could just see that Nike had an all-time high of purchase intent tweets after the September 3rd date, and positive purchase intent tweets outnumbered the negative purchase intent tweets 5-1. Not only did it break social media, but it also generated a lot of sales for Nike. And this is going back to one of its objectives, actually, was to influence sales in a positive way. So Kaepernick as an influencer generated $163 million in earned media. It was a $6 billion brand value increase for Nike and a 31% boost in sales for Nike compared to the previous year, according to Beer. During the financial quarter when the campaign went live, Nike reported a 10% jump in income to $847 million, driven primarily by strong revenue growth, according to Yuan. Not only did this do something really positive for Nike when it came to both the social media impact and the financial impact, but also made a huge brand impact on Nike. This was also its third objective that it was trying to reach. So you could really see that other athletes wanted to get involved, and they gave a kudos to Nike. The campaign continued throughout the rest of the year and had other superstars that might have faced adversity in their lives, such as Odell Beckham Jr., Serena Williams, LeBron James, Shaquem Griffin, who is a football player without a hand, and skateboarder Lacey Baker. So they chose these athletes to appeal to their target audience, which was the younger consumer, and also those that might have faced adversity in their time. So a lot of African American athletes too. So all in all, why was this campaign on social media just so successful? Well, first off, the target audience that they picked was spot on, and it aligned with what the campaign was all about. So really targeting the African American, younger, sort of left-leaning type of people. They found those people to be their primary buyers of their products. So, and it also aligned with just Colin Kaepernick and his values. So all the pieces really came together there. They also made a huge impact with their clients. In this case, the clients would be different athletes that Nike supports. All the athletes that Nike ends up providing footwear and clothing for took to social media to talk about the issue and were overwhelmingly supportive. of Nike's messaging, according to the American Marketing Association. The other reason that this campaign was so successful was that Nike's motives aligned with its brand. You had this character, Colin Kaepernick, who took a stand for what he believed was right against police brutality, had a lot of people calling him out for it, but continued to kneel and protest for police brutality and really do what he thought was right. And this aligns perfectly with Nike's branding, where it basically just talks about never giving up, facing up to what you believe in is right, things like that. So that was one of the reasons that this campaign was so successful, because Nike wasn't just sort of putting on a show or doing anything in a light that didn't seem true to its own brand. So really what happened was it was just two different pieces coming together to create something great and memorable. Overall, this is one of the most memorable both social media and ad campaigns of the last decade. You really had Nike with its own brand values of believing in what's right, never giving up in the face of adversity, and other key values that it's held on to for such a long time, making another social statement, as it has done in the past with Colin Kaepernick and having him as the face of their Just Do It campaign. So in terms of this campaign, overall, one of the most memorable campaigns of the last decade, and hopefully Nike continues to do it and continues to build on their brand.